Hey ASDVEC9, this is my mind on drugs, and I went ahead and I watched the videos that you posted about the difference between falsetto and head voice, and I'll link those videos in the description of this video below for anyone who hasn't seen it. But essentially, they're talking about the difference between how your vocal cords separate during falsetto and come together during head voice. And when you do falsetto, you get that really unnatural ha kind of sound. And what I've been doing in terms of how I talk is really in my head voice. So you can see he was talking about when you're in falsetto. So when you're in falsetto, there's a really natural break when you go low. So I'm going to start low. And then so that's the break. I don't know if you saw that. That's my break when I'm in falsetto. Again, falsetto being so so that's the break he was talking about. But when you're in head voice, you shouldn't experience that break when you're going from head resonation to chest resonation. So I'm gonna demonstrate that now, and that's how I generally like to speak. And that'll sound like he. So where so that's all in my head. So when I go into chest, you can hear that it doesn't have that break when I go do it in the alto. So so oh, sorry, that's more head. I'll try it again. So you can kind of see that break here. This is that break in that voice that you're looking at, that he's talking about when going from falsetto and you're transitioning from your head resonance into your chest. And then again, head voice would be when you can transition from your head resonance into your chest resonance, and then you shouldn't really hear that break. So I'm going to try that for you. So you can see how there's less of a break. It's a lot smoother. Again, it kind of goes weird. But let me try one more time. He. So do you see how as I go into my he sorry, it's hard. He So that's me. Okay, that's me going from my head voice, from my head resonance, like resonance inside my head, either my throat or in my nasal cavity, and down into my chest. So So you can see how there is no break here between my head and my chest. That's because I'm not in alto. I'm using head voice, which is what they're trying to distinguish between the videos. Again, alto being he. So do you see how there is that kind of break? it's not smooth when I go down into that chest voice, that means I was in falsetto. And what I'm talking in now is going to be head voice. Another thing that you were mentioning, there was another Reddit thread where this girl talks about how you don't need to worry about your resonance, and you can't, and she's talking about the shape of your throat and how raising your Adam's apple is primarily what's going to give you a feminine voice. And that's actually true. A huge part of having a feminine voice is that Adam's apple. If you listen to the second video with the gentleman who is the younger gentleman, when he goes into his head voice, you can hear that it sounds off. It doesn't sound completely feminine. That's because he's not clenching up his Adam's apple. If he had clenched his Adam's apple, he would have had a much beautifuler, more feminine sound. Now his and she's talking, when she talks to you in her video, she's talking from her throat. She's talking from her throat, and it has like a richer context to it, and you can kind of hear it when she talks. And this is because, again, I'm talking in head voice, but I'm using my throat to actually resonate versus my nasal cavity. So this is me talking in my nasal cavity. This is me talking in my throat. Again, you can hear that it is a richer sound. It is still sounding feminine, but it's not as, for me, it's not as high as I like it. It's not that certain timbre. So I like to talk here because I like to sound higher, nasalier, like ee, because when I get excited, I get really high pitched. I get really high and squeaky. That's kind of how I want to be. Again, you can have a much more luxurious voice if you want to speak from the throat. Hell, if you want to speak from the chest, you can even have a more sensual voice that way too. Like right now, I'm speaking from the chest. Like as you pointed out with the head voice, it really, you're right. I mean, it doesn't matter. It kind of matters, but I find that for me, having a more feminine voice, I like it in the nasal cavity, but if you can get your head voice, if you can figure out how to head voice and then raise your Adam's apple, that's your key right there. Head voice, he, not the falsetto, he. That is, that sound comes from opening up those vocal cords as they demonstrated in the video. It's not really a clench. For me, it felt like a clench, and I apologize for any misleading on that. But yeah, so again, you can have a lower, sexier voice in your throat. It'll still sound feminine if you're using the proper head voice. And again, you can even go into your chest. And I'm talking from my chest right now. This is a lower resonance. And you can hear that even though my pitch is about the same, because how I'm speaking from my chest, it sounds deeper and richer. And again, for me, that's not so much how I like to sound. Again, and then here I am in the throat. Here I am talking to you in the throat. Again, it's a little bit higher in kind of that noise. It's still a little bit richer. And here I am in my head. You can understand that it's higher. It has more head resonance. It's like squeakier, kind of more buzzy, a little nasally. That's how I like to talk. But again, you can talk like anything, because it doesn't really matter as long as you have your Adam's apple and your head voice. I'm not sure the specifics on, like, it looks like you could probably figure there's probably some standards on getting a head voice. But again, if you can slide from your head, your nasal resonation all the way down to your chest, and if your mark is very flat, that means you're hitting your head voice. So again, I'm going to do that for you. He. Versus a slide from falsetto. He. So you can see here that on this side, these are all very smooth. And then here, you can see the break appearing. Pa-pow. And that meant I was in falsetto. And I really want to thank you for ASDVCE9 for helping me figure this out, because this makes it so much clearer to kind of have some sort of context to like really talk to people about. And again, I'll post links to the videos below, the first one will be an older gentleman kind of just talking about the difference between falsetto and head voice. The second will be another younger gentleman kind of talking about the same thing. Again, when he does his head voice, and he goes, oh yeah, it kind of sounds feminine, but it kind of sounds off. It sounds off because his Adam's apple's not up. Because if you're not going to have your Adam's apple up when you're talking, if you're not going to have, I'm sorry, I wish I could get you a better Adam's apple down voice, but for me that's kind of like stuck. But when he does it, again, that weirdness where it's like, it kind of sounds feminine, but it's not quite there, but it's smooth and clear. That means you're in your head voice, but you're not clenching your Adam's apple. Anyways, if you have any more questions, let me know. Thank you. Bye.